Virginia here with Jenny Lee Gems. I wanted to show you my blue lace, blue agate, Teanaway blues, a red top. They came from that area, possibly Ellensburg, but I haven't had them tested. So here are a couple I've made already. I put a little white agate in there. It's not really a moonstone, it's just an agate in the little center. And then this one has a lot of lacing, so that looked really good with the silver. So this one I tried a little bit of vintage bronze, silver, kind of mixed it up, kind of a funky, but this was the darkest blue that I got. So again, these were not tested, but they come from near the Ellensburg blue, but they came out of the Teanaway River. So I want to show you how I am going to wire wrap. I think that I'm going to do this larger one. I feel like doing the larger one. I like the color on it. When the light's on it, it's got a really pretty purple blue. They just feel beautiful. They're so smooth. So if you haven't watched my videos, I'll just go through what I normally do. So first you measure your stone to know how long to cut the wire. So you go around the circumference of the stone. That's a little bit over 3 inches. So then you add 4 inches to make the bail and all the embellishments and stuff. So this is about 3 inches. I'm going to add an easy 4. So that's 7. So I am going to be using this 21 gauge square wire. And this is copper wire that has been coated with silver. So I need 3 pieces of this. And I usually just measure. So in this situation, I'm going to go, I want extra room at the top just in case. So I'm going to go 7.5. I feel like I've been cutting it pretty close. So use your little cutters. And I usually cut 1 instead of measuring on the tape each time. So this is little sticky tape that I just put on my little work pad. And then quickly I can go cut 3 of these. And I get this 21 gauge wire from parawire.com, but you can get it at Rio Grande or different places on Etsy. So I use 21 gauge square wire, and then I also use 21 gauge half round. So this is the half round, and it can be a little difficult to see, but the shiniest side goes down. So there's a flat side and a round side, half round. So 21 gauge half round. So I usually warm these up so I can straighten them. Then I'll go ahead and cut. Now you know my rule is measure twice, cut once. So I usually use about 3 inch of the half round. I normally do, on this one I did 4 crimps, but on this I think I'm only going to do 3. 1 here, 2, 3 there. So I just need 3 of the 21 gauge half round for now. And then later we'll cut the bail. I'm going to show you a little bit different way to do the bail than I've done in the past. So here's 3 of those to create the crimps. Okay. Now let me talk to you about tools. So just a little wire cutters. They're usually about $6 to $8. You need a straightener. This is wire straightener, and it has a little plastic on them so that it doesn't scratch. You'll need a flat nose set of pliers. And I usually have several of these, but these are the needle nose, and I've coated them, you can see. And I usually have a couple laying there. And then here is the bail maker. Now this is not my favorite one. It has this huge one, and then like the 1/4 inch. So this is about a 1/2 inch. This is about a 1/4 inch. And I use this size, the 1/4 inch usually, but I have several sets of these for my classes, but I have one that has this 1/4 inch and then a bit smaller. But this is Beadsmith, and it was, I think it was about 12 bucks. So you can get a whole set, a cheap set, for about 30 bucks that has everything in it you need. You could just look on Amazon. Okay. So next we're going to straighten the wire. You need your flat nose. And I just put the end right in there. To get your wire straighteners. And I usually just pull it away from you. You can do it whatever way's most comfortable for you. So just kind of get them straight as you can, because you want them to lean against each other, at least in the middle. And if you warm up your square wire, if you touch it and warm it up, it's a little bit easier. If it's really cold, it's a bit harder. So I'm just doing mine real fast. Do all 3 of those. So some people like to pull it towards them, whatever way you're comfortable with. Okay, our wires all straightened. See how that lays flat against each other? Just as best as you can get it. Sometimes this wire's a little twisted or whatever, but just try to get them as straight as you can. Okay, so then we're going to take our 1/2 round. Look at it. The shiniest side is usually the flat side. So I just kind of look at my 3 wires that I have together and decide where's the center. And I hold the tail on flat, leave a little tail because you don't want it slipping away from you, and then decide how many times you are going to go around your square wire. For this one, I think there's enough room I can go around about 5 times. And then I use my little, either your flat nose, or you can use your straighteners. And I just kind of crimp it down just a little bit. Now make sure you wrap it all the tails to the same side, which will be the back. So now this, I end up with 6 wires because I went around 5 times, and then the last one I went around once, the bottom one. So there's 6 wraps. That should be fine. It'll fit there easily. Then I go to the bottom portion of our square wire, and I do the same process. Leave a tail, hold it flat, go around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and with this one I am going to go 6 because I want 7 on the side. And you can certainly go a little bit more. If you do a little bit more wraps, it's going to show up on the side more, but I think that'll be fine, 7. Okay, you can kind of gauge by looking at it how much room it's going to take up. So that's 7 for that side. So then I go to the top, which is going to be the right side. Again, you'll notice that I finished with the wire all on the bottom because we're going to go back and clip these. So go to the top, portion, leave your tail, usually about a 1/2 inch. And then I'm gonna go 6 wraps. Fold it to the back and then push these up together and then fold that one to the back. So sometimes people have a hard time holding these. You know, I've been doing this for several years now, so I kind of know what tension to put on it. But you have to kind of get used to it. Some people hold it really tight and it starts curling the wire. So it's not a big deal. You'll just get used to the tension. So there, we've got the 3 wraps. Now we're going to flip it over and we are going to cut the tails off. So I'll try to get as close as I can so you can see what I'm doing. Now, if you're doing this with other people around, I suggest everybody wear glasses or protective lenses. This cutter doesn't flip them, but sometimes they can shoot clear across the table. Or you could just hold your thumb there and it's not gonna fly anywhere. But you've gotta be real careful because some cutters just cut it quick and it just goes flying. The tail goes flying. It could get stuck in your eye or your face or something. So when I cut just a hair over the inside of these wires because you don't want it sticking to your clothing or anybody else's if you're making this wire wrap for a gift or something. So just cut it just on the inside of that square wire so that when it's laying flat, you don't feel any snag. So see, you could just go back and kind of feel like that. And you know that it's okay. So they're all cut to the back now. Got one in the center, one on top, one on bottom. Now we're just going to try to find our center again. So remember I did 7.5. So 7 is 3.5. And so 3 3/4 is right about there. So there's my center. Now this side, well, they look about the same size, but this is a little bit longer, so it might just be a hair off. Okay. Double check the center. Might have moved a little bit. It's a little bit over. Yeah, let's move it right back down there. When you start playing with them, these, I don't crimp down very tight because I want to be able to move them once I get up the side. Okay, so now we're going to start wrapping it around. So make sure that where you cut is the back, and the back is going to go to the inside. I usually start at the bottom. Here's my center. Now these stones are really slippery, so sometimes it's kind of hard. These have been polished really well, so they just feel really nice. I love them. So here's my center. I'm gonna hold it with my thumb and use my forefinger to press down on the stone and wrap up around. Okay. Then I will turn it sideways. Whatever way you're comfortable with doing this is just fine. Whatever is the easiest way for you to hold it. So then I like to use my flat nose for this. So I'm holding it tight against the side. It's bent on the bottom, bent around the stone. The wire's warm. So then I'm going to go around the top. Now this is kind of a pointy top. So I'll go around the top just a little bit. Leave about 1/4 inch and then, so wrap it around the top just a hair. Leave 1/4 inch, like a little dip, and then do a crimp in your wire. This is what we're going to make the bail out of. So now when it's on its side, so again, you can do this whatever way you feel comfortable holding it. These are slippery. If your fingers get greasy, it's going to move around. I just automatically move this crimp up to the side of the wrap. That's about where I'm going to keep it. I'm not doing anything too fancy with this. I'm just doing basic. The stone kind of stands for itself. So then again, here's the bottom. Hold it down. I use my forefinger. Hold it down. Move your little crimp where you want it. So see how this kind of goes in? I'm following the line. This wire is warm. I'm forcing it in there. So I'm making just like a little cage for this cabochon. And it is slipping out of my hands a bit, but it'll be fine. So then again, this one's gonna come up and come over, just round it a little bit. Leave about 1/4 of an inch. Make sure that matches up with the other one. And there you have your little cage. So don't worry if these wires are off a bit. We'll be able to move them around. I'll be able to flatten this out. So then find your little, I like to say little, don't I? We've got to find our little crimp for the top here. And I don't know where they went. Here's one. So I save all these wires that I get off products that I buy, and they're coated wires, and I use them in my classes and when I'm wrapping. Okay, so take your little wire. Hold it there to keep it together. Or you can use little vegetable ties or whatever. Then I go back and I kind of check and make sure everything's fitting okay. So I really want this to be closer down here. So I'm gonna just kind of mold it the way I want it to be. So you see how this one bends in towards it, the stone, this one comes up and around. But I really want this bottom to be flatter. So I'm just gonna flatten it out. Just bend it. So you have a nice little cage. So go back and make sure all your wires are flat, because these little round ones, they can come up, they can be moved around and come up. So there's your cage. Tweak it the way you want it, and I'll show you what to do next. So now we are going to be forming the cage and creating the prongs to hold these in. I did square this corner up a little bit. I wanted it a little bit more pronounced, so I kind of messed with it a little bit off camera, so there. So you can have these higher, lower if you want a different look. I'm just gonna go even. That's what I do normally. Sometimes if you have a really odd shaped stone, you can, this crystal's a very different shape, so you couldn't do it just the regular, you know, 3 prongs straight across from each other. So I have 2 prongs on this side, 1 on this side, 1 on the bottom here. So it's quite a bit different. And you can see the inclusions in there. I think that's pyrite. But for teaching purposes, I usually just teach basic and then people can run with it. So normally the way I do it is get my little needle nose, and I kind of go in the same process every time. So I start on the bottom, the upper bottom, front. So the way you could tell the front is, as this is conforming to the stone, it starts bending in. So see, this is just slowly working its way out. The back is wider than the front. It just conforms to the stone that way. And that's the way I tell the front. Now this stone is so pretty that you could use either side. So, I don't know. I'm gonna use that as a front. So upper corner, just grab the top square wire with your needle nose and pull it out. So you want to leave this center wire in there and leave the back alone for now. If you can't get it out, use your nail to just free it up a little bit grab it with your needle nose and pull it out. So I'm just making some different little crimps here. So here we go. Then pull it out because we're going to fit the stone right in there. Then I just continue around working with the top wire only. Pull this out and make your crimps. Now you can get crazy with this wire and just bend it any way you want to make whatever design. I'm just doing some basic bends here, and my only requirement is that it's going to hold the stone in. So as you work with this wire, it gets sort of tempered or hardened. So the more you bend it and stuff, it's going to harden up. It's not going to be as easy to move again, but it's pretty tolerant of bending. You just don't want to bend it back and forth too much. It could break off, and then you'd have to just start over. So there, so I've kind of gotten it the way I want it, and we'll mess with the wire later on also. So I'll just double check that my stone fits in here okay. And again, hang on to your stone. It can slip and fly across the room and break. So, yep, it fits in there pretty good. We're gonna manipulate a little bit more and get it to look how we want it. But so then I start with the back. So the front's done. We know it's gonna hold our stone in. Looks pretty good. So now we're gonna start with the back. So again, I go to the upper and I create my little prong. I've been liking a few different bends in there instead of a long one that goes across. And I really don't want to hide too much of the stone. It is so pretty, so I'm kind of doing a different type of prong. So see here, this was kind of coming loose. I just make sure it's tucked down. So we're going to the back wire again. Leave your center wire in there, leave it alone, and just pull this one out and over because that's going to go over our stone. And I'm just making some different loops, designs, kind of playing with it a little bit. Okay, now we're ready to stick our stone in. And hopefully it'll stay without falling out. So this is the front, this is the back. I know this is the way it goes because I can tell how it conforms to the stone. So I'm just making it conform a little bit more. I'm pulling these prongs in. Oops, see, it's a good thing I'm on that soft pad. Sometimes I've literally dropped them at this stage because they're so slippery, and I've broken some in half. Usually they won't break, but so again, pull the top wire. So you just need to create the two prongs on the top now. So hold it so it's not slipping around. And again, the reason I have these coated, these needle nose, when you're working in this situation, this is when you can mess up your wire or scratch your stone. And you don't want to do that, especially if it's an expensive stone. These, I paid double for what I paid for them 3 years ago from the same guy. And I was happy to pay double because I had been looking for him for every time I went up to Liberty, I was looking for him. And he wasn't there. And this time I just got lucky on this camping trip. Okay, so make your little prongs, whatever design makes you happy. Can be wild or straight up. Whatever makes you happy. It's your creation. The only requirement is to make sure that it holds your stone in. So make sure it goes up and over. And I use the side of these, any of my pliers that's rubberized, to form the wire around the stone. And I generally go in and flatten these, push them down. Because again, you don't want anything going, I don't like the way that looks. You don't want anything hanging out there and nicking someone's clothing. I'm just going to mess with these a bit and see if I can get them to where I like them. So So I'm just working the front wire over. I got a little bit overzealous there. Over to where I like it. It's in there nice and solid, but I'm still going to play with it. I can't just leave stuff alone. So I'm going to push this up a bit over this corner, flatten it out. I'm always flattening and double checking. So make sure when you're double checking that these little wires haven't worked their way away. If they have and you need to get in there, use something sharp just to make sure they're not going to come loose. Mine look pretty good right now. So see, this wire comes pretty far up over this stone. You can just make some weird little crimps just to give it a different look. And if you start, there's a lot of people that don't coat their tools. But if this one starts getting worn out, go to the second one. I always keep a second one handy, or several. Okay, there is our encompassed Teanaway blue, I'm going to call it. There's the back. It's so smooth and so beautiful. It's almost fluorescent, it looks like to me, but I'm thinking maybe I should have these tested because they might be worth a lot more money if they're actually Ellensburg blue, if they have the right Mohs hardness. Okay, I'll show you what's next in the next part of the video. Okay, I've double checked everything. I'm satisfied everything's tight enough in there. We can tighten up as we go along. So you've got all of your little crimps on the front, all of your little crimps on the back. Everything's holding nice. As you jiggle it, it doesn't go flying out. So it's looking good. Okay, now we are going to get ready to create our bail. So the way I measure, now this is nothing technical, but I usually put my thumb here in the front to measure about 1/4 to 1/2 inch. We need the neck to be available on the top of this so we can put wire around it. So this is the neck part. So you see that's about between 1/4 and 1/2 inch. And that's what holds it all together. So you want to make sure you have enough room there. You can't put your bail right down on there. You have to have some room. So first, look for your 2 front wires. Hold your thumb there and pull it forward, leaving space. So there's one front wire. Sometimes it gets a little hard to see because they're all the same color. There's your second front wire. So the 2 front wires pull forward. And the reason I do this, it just gives you a smoother bail to pull the front wires instead of any wire willy-nilly. So then I look for the wire that wants to come forward most. And because you need 3 flat in the back. So I'm looking at these and I'm thinking this guy wants to come forward. Okay, because these 3 we're going to use for embellishments on the front, like that. These 3 wires we are going to use for our bail. So when you have that, now you still have to be careful. If this little wire isn't on there, you got to be careful because it can open up and fall out. Generally it won't, but it could. So you see how I've left a nice, close to 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch here. If you want a longer neck, you can do that. I wouldn't go much shorter than that because you're not going to have the room you need to create your neck and tie it down. So then I use this trusty little tie and kind of tighten it. And this helps to kind of smash the whole neck together, as well as just keeps everything in place. Okay. And these are kind of lying flat. I like them to be flat. And see, I'm glad I went a little bit extra on the wire because that gives us room for embellishment and to create a nice sized bail hole. I'll show you what to do next. So generally, this is the type of bail that I teach in class. We just lock everything down and pull the 3 wires apart like that. But I have been liking this type of a bail better. It's much cleaner. Yes, it takes more wire. It's a bit more work, but I kind of like it better. So it just depends on what you want to do. You could do it either way. Oh, here's one with that open wire. It's a little kiwi solar quartz. And you can see the rays coming out. That's why it's called a solar quartz. But it's got the little green there, and so they're calling it a kiwi. Hopefully everything's on camera. It's kind of hard to tell when I'm videotaping, but I try to stay within a certain area. So we are going to do this type of a bail that's all covered with wire. So take your half round wire, and I figured out that it generally takes 10 inches to cover the wire, and then we need an additional 6 inches to cover the neck. So there's 10 there, and then measure out to 6. So 16 inches of the half round wire. So it does take quite a bit of extra wire. If you're just going to do the regular bail with the 3 prongs, you just need 6 inches to cover right here of the half round. So here's this covered bail part will take about 10 inches half round. This portion only takes 6 inches. So decide which way you want to do it before you cut. We are going to do the fancier bail today, and to where it's covered. I like it better for these stones. So generally what I do is I've got my 16 inches of half round wire. Look at it. This is the shiny side. It's really hard to see for some people. And then this is the outer side, I believe. Let me look without my glasses. I can kind of feel this is the flat side. So I normally make a little 1/4 inch crimp here. I just bend it over. Okay. I just want that to go around, and I want it to be able to hold on somehow. So it's just easier for me. So and then I put the little tail and leave it on, and I hide it. Excuse my nails, they're kind of a mess. I was working in the yard yesterday. So I hold the tail and I just start wrapping it around. Now again, this is a tension thing. You hold it snug, but not so tight it causes these flat wires to move together. You want it to remain flat for that look that we're trying to get. Okay, and so what I usually do is either take my little straightener tool, flatten them a little bit, push them together. Take my glasses off because I can't see. So once you flatten this, it makes it a little bit easier to wrap around. So you're pulling snug, but not really tight. And I keep wrapping that until I get about 1 inch. And I figured that's about the perfect size bail. And it usually takes about 6 inches of wire. So use your tools to kind of, I just hold it, push it, crimp it down just slightly. Okay, so keep wrapping till you get a full inch. I'm not even halfway there. I'll be back when I get that done. Okay, so now I've wrapped about 1 inch. I've measured that so I can tell. I've got about 1 inch here. I know that's gonna fit the bail that I'm using, or the bail maker that I'm using, which is this 1/4 inch one. And I've double checked to make sure there's about 6 inches left to wrap the neck of my necklace. So what we do next is we take off our little black, or whatever type of wire you're using. So see, you see how that's nice and close? The neck is really close. I usually take the little, I'm going to count how many times I said little in here. So there's this tail here. Remember, we started off with the tail. We had a crimped one, folded around, we've got the tail. So I'm going to pull this down and just put it flat against the neck. We're going to wrap that right in there, and it's going to create a nice little bond so that nothing falls apart. Okay, so this is the part that some people have issues with. And it's just a matter of practicing and getting to know. So this is my 1 inch wrap here that we're going to make the bail out of. I push it down about even. Hopefully you could see that. About even with the top of the neck. Okay, and I'm holding all this together because I just want it to stay warm and tight. We're going to just hook it all together. So bail makers, you might want to look at this a couple times before you try it. Some people just take a pencil and wrap it around a pen. That's good for them. I use a bail maker, so you can make it however you want, but this is how I do it. So position your bail maker. This is the one that we're going to wrap it around. We're going to go front to back. So this is the one we're using for the form. So position that right about in the middle of your crimps that you've just created. So that's 1 inch. Position it right in the middle of that 1 inch. And then I just bend it around. I bend it around like that. So you've already started your bail. Then you can use your bail maker, the big side, push it down against it so it forms it even better. So see how that's tipped to the back a little bit? Take your bail maker and don't hold it too tight. Again, you just have to learn how to hold it so it doesn't really bend, just slightly, but don't get wild with it. So you could use this part of the tool to just kind of help form it. So then that's what your bail is going to look like. Now we can fix it if it's you could just position it up a little straighter, but just get it nice and tight in there. This is where you're going to put your chain or your ribbon or whatever you're going to use. So now you've got that all put together. You see how that looks? We have these little tails. We're going to cut. I am going to position that little piece that we had there. Okay? So practice if you're uncomfortable with the bail makers, just practice it. Practice the texture, get some old wire, mess with it, make a bail. But that's basically the movement that I use. And it's pretty easy once you play with it for a while. So now remember, we still have this 6 inch piece here. So this is what we're going to use on the neck to hold it all together right here. So we've got the bail all made. Now just start pulling wherever your wire ended up. Just start going on around, making sure to encompass that little tail. You want it down in there hidden. The key is to hide everything that you don't want to show. So these you could just bend up out of the way so you could work better. Now I usually start at the top and work my way down, pulling it snug, because this is what's going to keep your necklace all together. I try to do it as neat as possible, but if stuff overlaps, it doesn't matter. It's just going to strengthen that. And long as that flat side is down and you haven't got turned around, it's going to look really neat. So let me show you the back. So now once you get about to this stage, you know it's all holding together really well. You don't have to worry about anything falling out. You see how we have these little tails down here? These were those 3 wires that were left. We need to cut those off because we're going to cover those up. Now, some people take them and curl them around and leave them on there. I cut them off. But in this area, you have to be very careful because you could cut one of these wires and you don't want to do that. So just get it right in there. Don't cut any of your other wires. Be very careful. Hold your thumb over so you don't poke anybody's eye out or your own. See that one? I'm close my eyes, but that one shot across the room. That one did too. So just try to get it as close as possible and be very careful not to cut these wires that are holding anything together. Sometimes I push these up towards me so you could see better, and you know you're just gonna clip. I'm too close to that other wire. I don't feel comfortable, but okay. I'm gonna hold this. So there, see how close I got in there? There's a little bit showing, but we've got enough wire left that we can go right over the top of that, and it's gonna protect it. So we're just gonna go right over the top. Down underneath. You've got a good 1/4 of an inch that's being held in there. I usually get some of my pliers, try to pull it tight. And you know this is not going to come loose because we created one continuous wire to do the bail and to do the neck. So it's all in there very tight. So then as you get closer towards the end of the wire, just kind of gauge like, oh, there's enough for me to have this little piece and I can just tuck it in somewhere. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to hide it. I'm just going to hide the tail. It'll bend right in there. And I usually just stick it up inside. Use a little pointer, tweezers, whatever you have. Get that little wire to go up in there because that's kind of holding it all together. Not kind of, it is holding it together. There you go. So see, it's nice and hidden back up in there. Looks real clean. And now we're ready to start working on the embellishments. So that's what it should look like. That's that last 6 inches. You've wrapped it around. I really like this design, which I learned from somebody on YouTube. Can't remember who. Because it's all one piece. You don't have a bunch of different tails sticking around. And see how nice that big open loop is. And it just looks really clean. Okay. Keep working on that. Get it to where you like it. Tuck it up. Make sure everything's nice and tight. And I'll show you the next step. Okay, next step. Got our neck is all tightened down. I had to mess with my little wire, move it, because it was coming out. Okay, so now we move on to the embellishments, which is the fun part. Here's one. So this is twisted wire. You can use twisted wire or make your own. I'm just doing them all a little different. First, I was going to use this little crystal here, but it's kind of a dark blue, so I went and dug into my stash and I found these blue lace agates, which is basically the same thing. It's just where they came from. These are Washington, Ellensburg. I don't know where these came from, but it was $24 I paid for this strand. I know I've used them in something else, but anyway, that's a lot of money. It's probably more now. Anyway, I think that I'm going to use another agate, and I picked out this one that has the white and the blue. So I'm going to use a blue lace agate. I like the silver. Silver looks pretty too, the little silver ball, but I think for this I'm going to use this little agate bead. Keep with the agates. So first what I do, and this is not necessary, but I like to cut off the corner diagonally, or the end. I always cut them diagonally. They seem to fold up underneath better if you do that. And I just kind of figured that out on my own. So, okay, and I kind of even them up in this instance. This one's a little bit longer, so no big deal. Then there's a lot of different embellishments you can do, just different. But you can just do long strings hanging or wrap them around fancy. I just don't like anything that's going to get caught on clothing. So this is what I'm kind of stuck on at this point. I like using these little beads in here. So for the middle, we're going to start with the middle wire. And I like it to be a little flatter against the stone, not protruding so much. So I kind of flatten that middle wire. So after I've cut them diagonally, I want this white to be at the top for some reason. I just like the way it looks. So one thing I was going to mention, when you're picking your little gemstone or whatever you want to put in the center, you don't have to put anything at all. But if you do, just make sure the smaller beads you get, that the square wire fits through. So you're not hassling with it. Well, maybe I want the wire. Maybe I want the white on the bottom. Let's see. See, that's even a little snug, but yeah, I want the white on the bottom. Okay. So now we've flattened this wire against the neck here. We're just going to hold our thumb down, hold that bead. Don't press too hard. You don't want to, if it's a glass bead or something that might break. And then just start working your way around. Now again, this wire, if it's warm, it moves easily. So then just take a set of your needle nose. You could just lay it flat against, but I usually create a little hook so that the wire is pointed in. The end of the wire is pointed in, so it's less likely to move or catch on anything. So then I think I'll take this wire and do the same thing. Just, I line it up right next to it and then go back around the bead. Just working your way around. And then again, just with your needle nose, create a little hook. Or if you want to lay it flat, go ahead. Just lean it up against there. And I just find a little place to nestle it in, so it's not going to catch on anything. Okay, yeah, I like that white on the bottom. And then we've got our last wire. So let's go the opposite way, or whichever way you want to go. You want to go the same way, creating our little orbit here. Go clear around the bead. Bend it, create like a little hook, and stick it down in there. There you have it. And I want this orbit to be around. I want all the little wires to show. So I kind of mess with it till I get it where I like it. And there you go. It's all done. Now you just grab a silver wire, put it in there, and put it on. Usually before I hand these off to someone, I go back around and just make sure everything's tightened. Push, again, use your rubberized side. And I push up against and make sure everything's flat. And just make sure everything looks good. So there you have it. You can, if your neck's a little bent or your bead's a little bent, you can move it around. So once you stop warming the wire and you've bent it a few times, it hardens up. So it's going to be a little bit harder. Just check your front and your back. Make sure everything where it's supposed to be. And there you have it. Put a silver necklace on it or a blue ribbon and wear it with something and show it off. Thanks for watching. Message me if you have any questions. And there's 3 so far. They all look a little different. This dark blue is my favorite.